Hi, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. I was out and about today, and part of what I needed to do was to go to the hardware store. And there's a lady at the hardware store that I go to, the owner, and just to explain the different system here, what you would have normally, you would have a cash desk. You'd take what you bought and you would go to the cash desk and they'd cash you out, and they'd have a cashier there, and the cashier would be responsible for the money that was in the till, that old-fashioned word, when she took over the desk. So when she took over that, she'd be required to sign, I guess, for a certain amount of money, and there would have to be a certain amount of money back in there, plus whatever is recorded on the sales for the time that she was there. But in a lot of places where space is at a premium, like in Taliban, you'll have a tiny store, which is, I mean tiny, that just to get a counter in there and big enough for, say, 3 people is a real struggle. And then they disappear back into like the catacombs and go in to get stuff, and they come out and they almost have to go sideways to get in and out, and that's the way that it goes here. But if you then buy anything that's bigger than that, then they give you a white slip, and then you can either wait for the material that you bought to be brought into the marketplace where this tiny little store is, in the case that I'm talking about, or you can go to the warehouse, take the white slip with you, and they'll happily load it into your truck. Well, I'm looking at this lady who handles the money. So she's got 2 women, very efficient, who are working there at the counter, all within feet of each other. The owner is in a tiny little cubicle with, I'm taking it, some form of air conditioning so that she's not in complete purgatory. Oh, there's that Catholic word again. Well, anyway, so I'm just looking, and it made me realize that this lady is obviously very successful. She's very successful at what she does, so she enjoys the fruits of her success, which, from what I saw in just the few minutes that I'm at the counter, is money coming in hand over fist. And if that's what you want, despite everything else, then you would regard her as being very successful. She's also invested in a hotel that is outside, just outside the the town. So here she is. She obviously is pretty well off, but her success has, I was looking at the life that her success has brought her. She spends 8, possibly 8 or more hours a day in this tiny little cubicle, and she takes the money. The money comes in a tray, in a tiny little tray like this. That's how they handle it here. So in other words, you get the person who is taking the money. She takes your money, she puts the receipt into this little tray, and then she hands that over to the little cubicle where the owner is taking the money. Now, when the owner works out what the money is, she then puts it back in the tray. There's the change. Change is handed to you and counted out. And in most cases, the lady that's serving you will counter check that on a calculator. They're very big on using calculators out here. Everything's done by calculator, no mental arithmetic. So presumably there's no mistakes. So I'm looking, this is an extremely pleasant lady, always has a joke, gives me a few hundred pesos maybe here and there, depending on how much I spend. And so it's always a pleasure to go there. I bought all of the materials for building the red house at this tiny little hardware store in Taliban, simply because she did metal stud, and that was the material that I built the house of. So back to the real subject, which is not about this lady, but about how we invent, create, bring about a life that we want by the actions that we do. And very often, I watched a comedian today, it was very funny. He was talking about dreams, that Filipino mothers are dream crushers, because their idea of a successful life is probably a nurse, no matter whether you're male or female, you know, and whatever the dreams are, the comedian was saying that he told his mum, you know, well, I want to be a comedian. A comedian? Did someone tell you that you're funny? Wasn't me. And actually he was very funny. But he was talking about that important aspects of success, which is really the essence of what we're talking about now. And that is that so often we get pushed into a particular lifestyle which is not our choice. And then we spend an entire lifetime doing that. And a lot of the time it is because we don't know who we are. And this is kind of topical now, because didn't somebody who very recently, one of the contestants in Miss World or Miss Universe, was criticised in a way. She said that she felt that if you knew yourself and knew what your goals were, you wouldn't get depressed. You would be too busy succeeding. So it's a hot subject. We have to decide what we really are, who we really are, in order to be able to work out what would be the right dream for us to entertain. Everybody has loads of dreams, but the dream that they eventually pursue is the one that's the most important. We went to a tiny island very recently, and we talked to some of the students there. Now, the students that we talked to, mostly girls, except for maybe a couple of boys, and we had each one out, and what we tried to do was we tried to get them to accept the notion, right, that God had called them. So they're answering the phone, and they're doing the hello, and then on the other end a voice, which we're going to take for just for this little case, that it really was God. Hello, God, this is God. Look, here's the deal. If you decide what you really, really, really want to do in life, don't forget, this is God speaking, I will guarantee that you will succeed. So we're taking the failure item out of this recipe. We're taking that completely out of the mix. God has said, do it, you're going to succeed. It's guaranteed. What would you do? What would you really do? And for the most part, now that I'm thinking back, it was as if we were talking from the viewpoint of the comedian that I watched just a few minutes ago. Many of them, mostly, they wanted to be teachers. Okay? Part of that is that they can see that a teacher has a chance of having a job. And because they've been taught all of their life up to that point, they're familiar with what the job entails. So they feel confident if they feel that they can do it. They feel confident. And then a couple said that they would like to travel, so they'd like to be flight attendants. And let me see, what else? One said that she wanted to be a doctor. And then, let me see, nobody said that they wanted to be a blogger, by the way. Strange. But anyway, the idea was to take off all the possibility of failure out of the dream, so that you wouldn't say, well, of course I'd like to be an opera singer, but what chance have I got? If you take that out of this, then it can bring about all incredible things. Now, you must actually be sure that that's what you want to do. And the example that I like, which may or not be anything more than a mere anecdote to prove a point, but a particular talented concert pianist manages through various contacts and his teacher, who was fairly influential, to have an interview, like an audition, to play for a very, very famous maestro, conductor, composer, everything. And he gets in to see the maestro, and the maestro invites him to play. Well, he plays the thing that he is most proud of, and he plays beautifully. And when he's finished, he sits there and waits for the verdict. Well, the maestro says, you play very, very nicely, but here's what I suggest that you do. I suggest that you give up playing for a living, give up all dreams of being a concert pianist. Find a job that you really love and do it, and be a success at it, and earn a great living. Well, the man's very, very disappointed, and he goes away. But he does as the maestro suggests, and some 15 or 20 years later, he happens to be at a party where this maestro is there. And he approaches the maestro and he says, "Sir, I would like to thank you for your advice. You may not remember me, but years ago I played for you and you gave me some advice, but you probably don't remember me." And the maestro says, "Actually, I do remember you. You are an extremely talented player and would have gone far." And the man says, "Sir, I don't understand. You told me that I should give up, and I'm here to thank you for that, because I went ahead and I became an architect, and I've done some great work, had a great living, and had a family, and I'm very, very successful, and I wanted to thank you for guiding me in that way." He said, "Of course, my real dream would have been to have been a concert pianist. Why did you tell me that if you're telling me now that I could have been that?" And the maestro said, "I tell everybody that. And only the ones who are absolutely convinced down to the bone that that's what they want to do will continue, and they'll tell me, 'Go to hell. I'm gonna be a classical pianist no matter what you say.'" So he said, you were one of those. I told you to give up and you did. See, sometimes we have the dream, we have the capability, and all we lack is the belief in ourselves that we can actually do it. And if we could receive that cell phone call from God and believe it's God, and that He would tell us, "You can do it, because I guarantee that." Actually, He probably does guarantee that we will do exactly that. But oftentimes, we're not listening. So, pick your hearing up. Maybe God's speaking to you right now. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.